5th, 2026. My name is Morgan Fraser, and I am the interim chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. Regular meetings and public hearings of the Clark County Historic Preservation Commission are held in a hybrid format, both in-person and virtual participation options for commissioners, staff, and the public. This will allow for safe participation by commission members, staff, and any citizen interested in attending. For those of you joining remotely via computer, you should be able to see tonight's meeting agenda on your screen. If you can't see the screen and you've joined by phone only, I'll be announcing the agenda items as we move through the meeting topics. Members of the public and applicants that have joined remotely are attendees. Other event participants cannot hear your audio unless you are acknowledged by the commission chair or staff and are unmuted. This evening's agenda is as follows: roll call, prior meeting minutes approval, public comment for subjects other than public hearings on this meeting's agenda, as there will be specific public comment periods as part of those hearings, updates from partner organizations, public hearing for the Stenger House Certificate of Appropriateness application, new business, old business, commission announcements and events, subcommittee updates, and finally, good of the order and adjournment. Now I'll have roll call of HPC members who are present for this meeting. Commission members, please say, "I'm here," after I call your name. Jan Bader.
Here.
Morgan Fraser is obviously here. Madison Gabig.
Here.
Elaine Thatcher.
Here.
Rob Thomas.
I'm here.
Doug Wilson.
Here.
And John Zingali.
Present.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, we will consider the June 3rd meeting minutes approval. Is there any discussion or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, I will take a motion to approve the June 3rd meeting minutes.
Motion to approve the June 3rd minutes. Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. The motion passes. Public comment. We will now take public comment on any items outside of the public hearing items. We will begin with attendees in the room, if any.
Yep, there,
Gotta do the long distance.
up in the corner.
Hey, so my name is Carmen De Leon. I go by Mello. It's my first time here, so I don't know all what you guys do things, you know, how you guys' system works, but it says open public comment, my understanding. So I want to know, what is the benefit of being a historically registered entity? Because when you are historically registered, aren't you have to have some kind of protection? Because the I-5 bridge is a historically registered bridge, and they have all kind of plans to demolish it in favor of whatever. And I've seen the new bridge plan. It's a nightmare. It wants you to climb a 10-story, it's 100 feet approved to go up and down. Nobody in a wheelchair, senior citizen like me, disabled, we can't get up and down that bridge. And I would think that anybody historical would try their best to help to preserve that bridge, because how much time do I have? Do I have more time?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, so I'm from Sacramento, and from childhood, I remember that what was it, second or third grade? What was it? A field trip that we went to Old Sac. And Old Sac was the coolest thing you ever saw, because wherever you walked, it was wooden and it was so cool. And then we'd go into the old, 1800 gold mine era buildings, and it was just the coolest thing as a little kid. It wasn't a big deal because I lived right on the other side of the bridge of Broderick and Bright neighborhood, and Old Sacramento's right here, right in front of the Capitol building where I grew up. So I remember the spittoons that were this big, and then it's like, why do they have that? Oh no, they used to tie their horses to the outside of the building and leave water there for the horses. And that was nostalgic, and I loved it. And I want to see that for here. But they're demolishing everything. I saw them demolish the funeral home, and now there's a big old Fort 400 apartment building and it's a nightmare. They're making it an atrocity to go downtown and trying to say, oh, historically this and that. Well, so what my bottom line is, can we help save the bridge? Because really, I'd like to turn it into a walking bridge. So, I mean, you could keep the original part that's registered, whatever, because you know they built one side first and then they added the other to keep it as a walking bridge eventually, if that's going to be the case. But we should preserve that bridge at all costs. We cannot make another one. And the necessity for a third bridge is obvious. Back on the east side, we do need a third bridge. Everybody I've talked to agrees with the fact, and the people in St. Helens want it too. So hopefully we can preserve what we have that's from 06 or 16. Can you guys do anything? What good is it to be historically registered? That's my question, I guess. Where are you guys at with the bridge? Because I mean, preserving it to me, it's a big deal, especially when I see that they want to replace it with the ugliest atrocity that you've ever seen for a bridge. If you have any idea what bridge design is, give me a break. Come on. You know, maybe next time. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and your comments. Anybody else in the room? Hearing none in the room. Susan, could you see if there was anybody online who'd like to make a comment?
If you're using a computer, tablet, or smartphone, if you would like to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand. There are instructions on the screen, coming up on the screen, on how to do this. Typically, the hand icon is located towards the bottom of your screen, but you may need to click on the icon that looks like a circle with 3 dots in order to see the raise hand option. For anyone on the telephone, please dial *3 on your phone's number panel to raise your hand. And I do not see any raised hands.
All right, thank you, Susan. This concludes the general public comment portion of this meeting. We will now hear updates from our partner organizations.
Good evening, Commissioners, staff, and guests. This is Holly Chamberlain from the Historic Trust with some updates. Providence Academy is 100% occupied at present. 2 of the small business incubator participants have had their first anniversaries in their subsidized spaces and are doing very well. A letter of interest has been submitted to the Murdoch Charitable Trust for support for Academy accessibility improvements, including the elevator. Due to weather challenges, a few more plants in the new garden areas need to be replaced. The new ones arrive in September. The event venues team has completed planning for use of the new plaza as an event venue and has purchased the necessary equipment. The first plaza rental is coming up on August 15th. Porch decking repair at Officers Row Building 4 has been completed. Summer exterior painting has been completed on Officers Row Buildings 7 and 19. The Red Cross building has new porch umbrellas and new curtains and wicker furniture in the sunroom. The pathway on the east side of Building 10 has been replaced following removal of a tree planted too close to the building. The replacement tree will be planted in the fall following NPS archaeological review of the proposed location. The annual site inspection with the certified arborist to determine which trees need fall pruning has been completed. Capital planning and budgeting are underway for 2027. The Trust's America 250 programming continues with Museum Day on Saturday, August 8th. Tours will be available at Providence Academy and Marshall House from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is being held in conjunction with Family Fun Day happening on the Grant House lawn. Come enjoy youth-oriented performers and lawn games. Community organizations will be on hand sharing information. Bring a blanket or low-back chair and relax on the lawn at the Howard House while listening to the music of Hucklebuck Highway on August 21st. The free concert will start at 5:30 p.m. and finish up at 8:30 p.m. You are welcome to bring your own refreshments or enjoy the offerings of the food trucks, which will be available on site. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Is there anybody else online, Susan?
No, we do not have any other partners online.
No.
Great. This concludes the partner update portion of this meeting. Now I will open this hybrid online public hearing for a certificate of appropriateness application for the proposed renovation at the Stanger House. The steps involved in the hearing process are shown on the slide. Do any commissioner members have any ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest with this project? City of Vancouver staff will now give a summary of the staff report and recommendations.
Thank you. My name is Anthony Tortorici. I'm a planner with the Community Development Department of the City of Vancouver. Tonight, I'll be presenting a request for a certificate of appropriateness for the John Stanger House. The request is the first phase of an interpretive and restoration plan intended to restore several historic features of the house. I'll begin with some background information on the property before going through the proposed improvements and staff's recommendation. The subject property is located at 9215 Southeast Evergreen Highway. The Stanger House was constructed in 1867, making it one of the oldest surviving residences in Vancouver. The property was listed on the Clark County Heritage Register in 1983 and the National Register in 1990. The aerial photograph depicts the outline of the property and provides context for its location along Evergreen Highway. So tonight's request is for an approval of a certificate of appropriateness for the first phase of the interpretive and restoration plan. The application includes 3 restoration components, each intended to reveal or restore historic features of the house. Next slide, please. Thank you. Because the Stanger House is listed on the Heritage Register, the restoration work proposed tonight requires commission review before it can proceed. The proposal is reviewed through the Certificate of Appropriateness process. As part of that review, city staff evaluated the proposal against the applicable standards for rehabilitation and the applicable standards of the Vancouver Municipal Code. Next slide, please. All right. The first proposal involves restoration of a historic window opening in the bedroom. The existing window and trim would be removed and relocated to the parlor. The original window opening would then be reconstructed to its documented historic dimensions and fitted with a new replica 6/6 single hung wood window. The proposal also includes restoration of the surrounding exterior trim and siding. The images on the right show the existing condition and a rendering of the proposed restoration. The second proposal involves exposing a portion of the home's original interior wall construction. Horizontal wall boards, baseboards, studs, and spacer boards would be removed from portions of the west and north bedroom walls to expose the original whitewashed vertical plank wall construction. The images on the right show the existing wall assembly and the areas proposed for removal to reveal the original historic materials. And the third proposal involves exposing a portion of the original exterior wall beneath the north porch. A section of the existing exterior siding would be removed to expose the original vertical plank wall construction. New cedar battens, sized to match the original battens, would be installed over the exposed planks using salvaged historic cut nails. The rendering on the right illustrates the location and appearance of the proposed restoration beneath the north porch. Next slide, please. Thank you. So staff evaluated the proposal in accordance with the Historic Preservation Commission's adopted rules and regulations. As required by those rules, the proposal was reviewed using the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. Based on that review, staff finds the proposed work is consistent with the applicable standards and recommends approval of the Certificate of Appropriateness. That includes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions as they pertain to the process here. And Rob here is next to me to answer any questions about the work itself or the home.
Does the commission have any questions for staff? Push your button. Go for it.
So, one question, there you go. So one question is, with plank wall framing, the actual planks are the structure of the building, and removing some of the kind of things that are maybe keeping it all together. Have you looked at an engineering idea to make sure you're not going to have a problems with the structure?
Yeah, okay. So I could just jump in because I made a model because it's,
Well, wait. Well, we're going to have questions for the applicant in a minute, right? We're just doing questions for the staff about the process.
Sure.
And so, 1 second, Rob. You'll get that in just a second. So
Staff-
it's
staff
questions
report was great.
for the staff.
Sure.
This part gets a little tricky every time.
Yeah, and I guess I will clarify quickly the presentation slide showing the order of operations. Only staff will be making a presentation tonight. And then, if you don't have any questions for me, we could just move right into questions with Rob. So sorry if it deviated from the normal process.
No, that's fine. So seeing that we have no further questions for staff, including Jan online, would the applicant like to provide any additional testimony before the questions?
yes, thank you. I thought okay, this is my first time here, so I'm trying to figure out how this is supposed to go, but I'll start with introducing myself. I'm Rob Seaman, retired mechanical engineering. I started volunteering 4 years ago at the Stanger House. My wife Barb and her friend Dion went to the Arboretum to look at the flowers, and Mike and Doris Hale were working on the house. It must have been a Friday, and they invited her in, and she said this would be a perfect hobby for my husband to work on in his retirement. So she came home and said it was a plank house, which I was a carpenter when I was younger. I've worked on old house buildings in Chicago. We did insurance work on Chicago fire era houses, but I had never heard of a plank house. So I showed up the next Friday and have been volunteering ever since. Did research on it, found the Miller Brewer House, which was in Rochester. It was well documented. In that report, I learned a lot about how plank houses are built and how they work, and led me to other studies about other plank houses up north in the Seattle area. Unfortunately, that house burnt down in 2017 in a wildfire, so I never did get to see it, but fortunately they had a very good report. So asking about how a plank house works, this is a scale model, 1/16 scale. So the boards are 1/16 inch thick to represent 1 inch thick boards. There is no structure. I built this because it's hard for people to understand the concept of not having any frame whatsoever. So from your angle, you can see right down there, and there's nothing holding this up except the plank walls and a ledger board that holds the second floor, a ledger board that holds the roof, and stringer boards that kind of holds the edges together, the sides together. And that's all. It's called a box house because it's very much like a box, very thin, but you put a tight fitting lid on a box and it is very, very strong. This house is very solid, and it's very well preserved. Fortunately, there was a new roof put on in 2010, and so that helped very much in preserving the house. And to go a little further on this, it existed like this from 1867 up until 1897 when they started, no, 1888, I'm sorry, they did some adding the interior
Partition.
wallpaper. Not the partitions, but they put wallboard over so that they could put wallpaper on it. They're wooden, they look really nice, but the only purpose is like our drywall of today. It's only to hang wallpaper on. let's see. After the Webbers bought the house in the early 1960s, Jane Weber did the renovation of the house. She removed all of the wallpaper from the last Stanger era restoration, which was in 1909. So all the wallpaper and stuff was removed, and she used fabric in place of wallpaper. And I mean, it look, there's photographs of it and it looks a lot like wallpaper, but it's fabric. By the time Mike and Doris Hale started volunteering there, it started to smell pretty bad. So they removed all the fabric, and their main focus was preservation at that point. And so they removed all that fabric, and that kind of gave us a very special opportunity to do something special with the house, because all the historic fabric of the 1909 renovation is gone. There's really nothing to go back and recreate. So the decision was made, what we'll do is each room can represent a different period in the phase of the life of the house. So this presentation is requesting approval mainly for the bedrooms. You need to stop me if I go too deep, because I can always go deeper and deeper and talk for hours. But in researching this, we found that, in fact, there's a good picture of where you see the plank wall revealed. There's a gap in the wall. We found they build the house and they go around and put the second layer of planks inside, overlapping to kind of keep the wind out, with a layer of newspaper between, which Dr. Weber said was dated 1866, which helped date the house for the National Register. They left a little gap in the wall, and that's where there's a perpendicular wall. So I've shown that there were 2 bedrooms, equal size, centered on either side of the house, right behind the chimney. Okay, that'll be another co-application in the future. But for now, we're focusing on the rear bedroom. And I think I will jump back to this. Okay, and you've all read the thing, so you've seen the different phases. So each room will be a different thing. I'm not going to have to go through that. I'll just focus on the bedroom. Okay, so the walls are very, very thin. 1 inch with a second layer, so it's 2 inches thick. I spent a long time just trying to figure out, how can you put a window in a 2-inch thick wall? I think I referred back to the interpretive plan, where I've got a photograph where I showed a window. It showed the 3 windows through time, 1867, later the 1888 windows, and then the 1909 windows. So I knew a lot about them. I knew they were, there was whitewash and there was trim. And the piece of trim that was not painted showed that the trim was tight against the wall, and it was only 2 inches thick. This spring, my family went up to the San Juans on vacation, and I knew there were plank houses up there on San Juan Island, and so we found out, oh, you can take for pedestrians, it's free to do inter-island ferry stuff. So we're going to San Juan Island. Well, let's go look at the plank house. Well, I found it was closed, but in doing that, I found they have historic structure reports. And so I found a historic structure report on, there's an American camp and the English camp. And so at the American camp, there's an officer's quarter, 2 laundress quarters. English camp, there's the English camp hospital. All of those were well documented. In 1972, they had drawings of all the windows, doors, the whole structures, and found that those were single hung windows. I also found Pickett House in Bellingham, 1850. That also had a HABS, the Historic American Building Survey in 1937, I think. They did the same thing. I'm not sure if that was WPA, but anyway, they're paying out-of-work draftsmen to document historic buildings. And so again, this had details of the windows, and again, single hung 6/6 windows, and they were very, very thin. The sashes are only 1.25 inches thick, so that's 2.5 inches. They use the trim as a stop. There's no parting bead in a normal window. You'd have a parting between the sashes. And then the inner on these were built in a 1/2 inch. And so there's just a 1/2 inch spacer and then the trim. So that still explains why there was no whitewash on the plank wall inside the window. Okay, so we've used that to really prove that there was, that would have been the type of window they used. I also went to the fort, and pretty much every building there has single hung windows. Single hung, just to clarify, is the upper sash is fixed. There's a parting strip underneath that holds it up. And then that parting strip also acts as a stop for the lower sash. So the lower sash can go up and down. So that's what single hung means. And then the final bit of evidence that these were there was upstairs. They put in 2 windows upstairs because it was probably pretty dark up there. And those windows are also single hung windows, and they were put in sometime between 1867 and 1888. So I just said circa 1870s, sometime around there. So those showed that John Stanger was familiar with the design, used it upstairs, and other plank houses use that design, and they're used locally. So he would have been very familiar with it. So I kind of came to the conclusion that that's the window we want. Should I keep going through the next ones, or do you want to
Well,
ask
we can,
questions about this?
I am very familiar with this project. I've been to this house several times. Is anybody else interested in hearing more about it? There's a larger project, and they've broken it down, and now we're looking at 3 pieces of a very big project.
Yeah.
Right. To sum that up.
So no questions on the windows, but I will point out that there's another plank wall frame building, Eby's Ferry House, up there. And if you don't have access to those reports, I could probably dig them up.
I've got them.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
that's in there too. And again, same thing. It's yeah.
So I guess I will open it up to see if anybody has any specific questions for the applicant. For this COA, there are 3 parts. They want to replace one of the windows. It's a single hung window. It's 1/1 with a 6/6 single window.
It's a 6 in the upper sash, 6 in the lower sash.
And they want to expose one of the bedroom walls. I'm assuming that's on the interior, not the exterior of the house.
Yeah, interior.
And then they want to expose a portion on the porch for interpretation. So those are the 3 things that we're looking at today. So if you have any questions, please ask.
Let me expound on what you said. This is a bigger project. So each room is going to be restored to a different period. The parlor was 1909. And I know that because I found a piece of newspaper tucked in a little crack where the original floor was replaced with a tongue and groove floor, and they put that in there. So I got 1909. So I'm pretty certain about that date.
Also, I was going to say, Bart, can you bring up those slides again of the windows and the walls so that people can see them?
Yeah. So the other part of this bigger project is we need a window to replace the French doors that Weber put in there.
But just to clarify, that window that you're talking about there is not this window that we're discussing right now, is it?
We are building a new window to go in the bedroom. The existing window in the bedroom is one of the 4 original double hung windows from 1909. So we're going to use that in the parlor. So we have the exact window that was taken out and thrown away. We will be able to replace it with the exact window that was taken out. And so in the bedroom, we're trying to go 1867. So we're going to make a replica 1867 window, brand new replica for there. Let's see, what am I missing? Okay, and then other things of this, each part of the project builds on the other. So I use that window we're taking out to complete the parlor restoration. The planks we take off from, or wall boards from inside the bedroom can be used to patch around where the French door was. Eventually it'll be wallpaper too, so it's like drywall, so the appearance is gonna not really matter. It's gonna look as good as it did.
Is there any need besides aesthetically that you're replacing this window?
It represents 1867. Yes, we're
So
trying.
that's why you're replacing, you're asking to replace this window because you want to use it in a different part of the building.
Well, yes, it's 2 things. We're trying to show what 1867 looked like. We want a person to walk into the room and be surrounded with how it looks. So this request is just removing the wall boards from the west and north walls. In the future, I'd like to replace, again, you can see that little groove there next to the window. That's where the original, there was a single plank wall in there. I'd like to recreate that. I just didn't want to dump too many things into one request. I want to get this done so I can get to where we can fix the real structural and risk elements to the building, which are the big French doors.
Right. We'll get to that. Yeah. Let's not get.
Stairs door.
Yeah, that's the
is a
future
bad
proposal.
situation.
Let's make sure that we can focus on this
So-
one for right now.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions for Rob about the window, the removal of the portion of the planks in the bedroom and on the porch?
And I feel much more comfortable that you're a mechanical engineer. So, but the question was removing the, facade from these plank walls, is that going to impact the structural integrity of the house?
No, and facade's the right word. It is just a framework in order to hang wallpaper. Structurally, it was there for 30 years from 1867, 1897, or no, I did it again, 1888. So whatever that is, without those structures there. Yeah, it's pretty unique that it's totally different for anybody who knows anything about construction. The load doesn't go through a frame. The load goes through the planks, which is pretty unique.
I mean, I'm going to say something now since people aren't having questions, and I generally have a ton. I'm having a really hard time with the fact that you want to take out all of it. Like, you don't just want to replace the glass. Like, I just feel like it's unnecessary. Like, if you want to build a new window in the parlor to look like the other windows, you should just build a window in the parlor, because when you take out those French doors, it's going to be a big hole.
Yes.
And I just don't see the real point in taking out a historic window to replace it with a replica. So I'm having a hard time getting over that one, even if it's 1901. I'm looking at what's shown here on the slide, and that looks like a really bad representation of a 6/6, the kind of vinyl things that you see in houses that want to look historical. So personally, I'm having a hard time with this particular part of the proposal because I just don't see its use. And you're going to have to construct something in that other room. Anyways, you're going to have to construct a new window in that other room if you take out those double doors. So why not just leave this window if you want to replace the glass so that it looks similar to other windows of 1867? I could support that, but I'm having a hard time supporting taking out the whole window and building a whole new window.
Okay.
Just,
So,
no, wait,
okay.
my turn. So that is a hard thing for me. That's a really hard part of this proposal for me. Exposing walls so that you can do better interpretation, I have less concern over, especially because I've been at the house with you and I've looked at these areas where you want to do this. And yeah, it's sound. But this window replacement for me is, it's like, for me personally, it's a hard no.
interesting.
Because why would you take it out? I mean, you would have to give me, is it rotten?
Can I?
Yeah.
My turn?
Yeah, your turn, yeah.
Okay, so again, I didn't want to put too many requests into one.
No, that's
So
fine, Rob.
I left out the French door.
That's fine.
I left out the upstairs
Mhm.
door. So yes, those are causing problems. The upstairs door has been exposed.
Right, but I'm just talking about this one window.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Well, I need to explain why it's important that I'm using this window here and building a new one for the bedroom. Okay. So, so upstairs it's exposed and water's been getting in there and has rotted the stringer across there. That's going to have to be repaired. So once I get approval to close up that plywood opening at the very top, at the top of the stairs and replace the French doors, I'll have access to the area to replace that rotted out stringer. That's the only place I know of any rot in there. But that's been known for 20 years. That was brought up at this meeting when Mike Hale was here in 2021.
I was at that meeting too, Rob. Like, I'm one of the oldest people next to Jan. Jan and I have been here with you the whole time.
One of the former chairs at that meeting said, we need to fix that door. And then the lower one, the French doors, when they cut that, they're cutting through all the planks. Now in a frame house, you'd put in a header and distribute the load. There is no frame. You cut through the planks, you're destroying the load path for the load of the roof and everything else to go down to the sill timbers. So this needs to be replaced so that it can improve the structure of that wall. So we will build a wall that will support the planks. And this is the next.
Right, I'm just,
in September.
so we have to review things based on some of the documents that are not in front of us, right? That's the National Register nomination, and that is the Clark County Historic nomination, which is not in front of all of us right now to review. But I'm sure that those documents talked about the windows, if I recall right. And so this is, you're kind of going against the documentation of the house and what is significant about the house as you try to create this wonderful restoration of the different periods of this. I never say it right. Stanger house? I always call it the Stanger house. I know Jan always corrects me. But for me, it's going against what we have to compare it against. And so for us, looking at those documents and then looking at your request, it's like, wait, this is going directly against what we have to review against.
May I finish? I was talking and then you,
Well, it's actually my time to talk and ask questions,
Okay.
right? And I said that you could talk to me about why you wanted to change the window, and you did a great job of explaining. I understand all those other things about this house, but we're not talking about, and it's hard because of the way you've parsed it out, and I appreciate the way you did it because it was so big the first time you came. But this really is, I personally cannot support this part of the proposal. And I guess we're into the discussion portion of this presentation. Because of that, like, there's nothing wrong with this window. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this window. Why would you take it out? I understand the structural reasons for the other things, the door up above and the door over here and the rotten stringer, but that has nothing to do with what is being presented right now.
Morgan,
Yeah,
I didn't get to the answering your question.
okay.
So I talked about why we're putting things over here.
Mhm.
The bedroom, we're trying to restore it to 1867. This plank house is extraordinarily rare. There's nothing else like it. The closest ones are up in San Juan Islands, Bellingham.
Yep.
There's nothing like it. This is so rare. Even those, typically a plank house gets covered up and you can't see it. In this house, you can see the planks in one place only, in the attic. I cannot have tour groups coming through that narrow stairway upstairs to look at what a plank house looks like.
Right.
I want-
I wasn't talking about that portion of the proposal,
Okay, so so then,
just so you know.
I know, you're
Because
just,
we've discussed that in depth together.
Can I jump with a question that has to do with this?
And then you can answer it.
question.
So from what I'm understanding, and I've done the tour with you as well,
Right.
is each room is going to have a different era. And the reason that we are moving this window to where the French doors are and then replacing this window with a 6/6 is because of the era that you want this room to be. Is there a way we could keep this room in the era that this window represents, the original window that has nothing wrong with it, and then put a reproduction, the 6/6 reproduction, in the room where the French door is supposed to be? That way we don't have to move this authentic window from this room and just change the era that we're looking to recreate in the other room. Is that a potentiality?
It would be confusing to the viewer. The parlor has two windows, both of 1909, and I want to put another 1909, so the parlor is restored to 1909. If you had the opportunity to read through
I've read through it and you gave me a tour yourself. Asking specifically, because to my understanding, the French door, it wouldn't create a mismatched window problem to replace the French door with the window that you're proposing. Isn't that correct? The French, is the
The
French door
606
in the
still-
parlor?
the French door in the parlor, you're saying,
Okay.
should we replace it with a 6/6 single hung window that's 2.5 inches thick? No, I don't think that would make sense in we're restoring that room to 1909.
And it has a second room, a second window in that parlor that the 6/6 would not work with. That is original to the time?
It is original.
Okay,
So
that was the part that I was looking to confirm. Thank you. You've answered my question.
The reason we're putting the 6/6 in the bedroom is that's what existed in 1867. It's different. Historians, architects, people who know anything about constructions need to see this and understand how special it is, how unique that you have a building without a frame, and how do you put in a window in a 2-inch thick wall? That window demonstrates that it's done, and it's done commonly. It's done at the fort. It's done in other period plank houses, and it's unique. It's it's unlike common or modern construction. You cannot apply like building codes to this. This is not how things are built now. So I want to educate the public, historians, architects, people interested in construction of how this worked. And that 6/6 window is different than the 1909 window. The 1909 window is a single big window pane. Those didn't exist in 1867. 1867, they used cylinder glass, which is, this is where I go into deep. Cylinder glass was used to make windows, and it was basically is a hand-blown thing. They blow a cylinder about that long, cut the ends off, slice it down the middle, roll it out. Now you can make windows out of that. And that's where you get the waviness of a window. It's not the glass is liquid and flows down. It's the type of glass that was made at that period of time. I want to represent that 1867 look, the 1867 mullions that go in there that match the mullions that are at the plank houses up in San Juan's and at the Pickett House. They're different. Mullions used to be quite thick, and then they got thinner and thinner. By 1867, they were quite thin. This one is only, I forget if I make it 9/16 or a half-inch thick. They're very small so that you don't see them so much. Sight lines, you can see through the window. They don't want big, fat, mullions are the piece in a sash that hold the glass in place. The sashes themselves are different. The sashes are constructed, they're thinner in width, so as not to take away from looking through the window. There's also unique things that they pin them together so that you can take them apart. Windows will last hundreds of years if they're well maintained, hundreds. And so,
One last question, Rob.
okay.
Are there other 6/6 windows in this house?
No. At the time of the National Register, Leo Garfield did document that the upstairs windows were 4/4. Now, typically when you build, the rules of architecture is you build things so that they're symmetrical and, I'm missing the words, but there's like the
Proportional.
Fibonacci sequence and stuff, proportional. So the upstairs windows are going to be smaller and proportional. So they were scaled down. And they're 4/4 instead of 6/6. But currently, no, there are no 6/6.
Thank
There
you.
were.
Thank you.
I also have a question. So I think I might have a differing opinion than Commissioner Frazier. So reading the nomination form, it said that the period of significance for this building is from 1867 to 1900, when Stanger died. It sounds like the window that is existing that is causing concern is beyond the period of significance. I'm curious, so the area that you're bringing back to 1967, is the entire house from 1967, or is the parlor an addition from later on when those 1909 windows would have been added? So you're trying to bring that 1909 window that's not true to the period of significance of the original plank house and putting it back into where it would have been originally located. I mean, it's not the original window in that spot, but it would have originally been there. And then you're bringing back this 1867 portion to something that would have been reconstructed to be in alignment with what was there. Is that correct?
I think so. Yes, it was. The original house was a plank house, a freestanding plank house.
Okay.
And it existed like that until 1888, they put wallpaper inside. 1897, they put the kitchen addition on. So yes, the original plank house would have looked like the parlor, and I'm trying to make that immersive experience where you can walk in that room and you can see plank walls all around. You can see the ceiling is whitewash because it's dark in there if you don't paint it white. You can see the original, how the original window would have worked and why it was that way. That it's so different than a window you've seen in other historic houses. It doesn't have window aids. It doesn't even have a movable upper sash because there's not room to have that stuff. It's unique. It's special. This house is so special. I can't tell you how many times I say that.
I appreciate the passion and the research.
Yes.
All right. Does any other commissioners have any questions for the applicant?
It does sound like, based on Morgan's concerns, we need to address the COA in 3 separate parts, or at least 2 separate parts, rather than approving or rejecting it altogether.
Thank you, Jan.
Yeah, that was going to be the question/statement I had when we got to the group discussion, was to do it in 3 separate parts.
All right, so we don't have any more questions for the applicant. Before we deliberate, we will open the public comment period. Susan, is there anyone online? Oh, sorry.
So
You have to walk up and sit at the special seat, and we have to be able to hear you on your microphone. So you get recorded.
we need to know your name. Hello, my name's Don LaPierre, and fully understand what's going on here with the window. If he's basically upcycling or reusing that window in another place in the house. So he's not destroying anything. He's just going to reproduce that in the time frame when that window would not have been in that place to reproduce that room to that time period. And so I see exactly, I can see ahead to your vision, but that's why, because it is different. They did build it different. It's just like right now, you can take a Model A and you can take that Lamborghini. They're different. And historically, there's things you do to keep them so that they do meet the historical register, that they meet all the guidelines for the time period that if you want to reproduce just that one room. And I'm super excited because I didn't know squat about this house. I studied architecture and I did not know how a plank house works. And the lid thing, just no doubt, it just, oh my gosh, that's how they work. And it's just amazing. I've been to a lot of plank houses around, but I didn't know about this. And so it's interesting it's cool to see, and it'll be neat to see it as it comes to fruition and you have the periods through it that you can really see. And it seems minuscule that you have to start there to finish a parlor way down there where the real damage is from the weather. But it is such a process to make sure you do it right, to meet all historical registry guidelines from those time periods and when this thing was made. So kudos, heck of a project.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We have one more public comment. Please come to the microphone.
And Chair, since we're doing this little unorthodox, just for everyone that's listening online, we've moved to the public comment in the room, but we will offer instructions for online when we're done.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you, Bart.
Hi, I'm Julie Vaughn, and I also wanted to just provide my support to this project. I have been working with Rob on understanding the depth and complexity of this multi-part project. And as I'm listening to the questions about the window, I think when I was at the house, I think it made sense to remove the 1909 and put it into the parlor, not only because of the representation of the period of 1867 when the plank house was built, And then you can do a replication to reproduce that time period. But also, if you are going to move those wall boards, there's going to be a huge gap and a bizarre, it's going to look strange if you don't remove the existing 1909 window and do the reproduction. That will be, I think that he said it will cause some confusion, but I think it will be very odd to see this plank and then this 1909. It's not just the panes of glass, it's also the width and the height. So all of the window, the whole structure is going to be different with the reproduction to represent that time period. I think he does a good job of including the renderings of how it will become a narrower but taller window and how they'll fill those gaps appropriately. And I feel like he did a ton of research on that. And then the 1909 window, that I think the exciting thing about that is original to the house. It was the original 1909 window going into the parlor, which will represent the 1909 period. So it's nice in that he doesn't have to destroy any of the fabric that exists. If he were to leave that window in that room and do replace just the panes of glass, then he is destroying the 1909 historic piece of the building. So I feel like he's in a hard and a rock place, I guess, a little bit. But I think that the best option is how he's presented it. So anyway, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
I want to speak up too.
All right, we have one more.
I'm Kelly Pudney, live here in Vancouver, 807 East Reserve. I have been involved in this project since Dr. Weber and I were negotiating the property. Hopefully, we were hoping it actually would become city property back in the 70s and 80s. I lived on the property and presented a grant to put a new roof on. Back in those days, we wanted to put, just to save the house, we wanted to put a tar paper roof on, basically, and we were forced by this group, and I honor that commitment, to put a cedar roof on. It took us an extra year and a lot more water in the structure over that year, but I'm just saying this purely because I've been involved with this house for a good 30 years, and I appreciate what Rob's doing here. And we are a nonprofit, no paid employees working at that property. We're all volunteers. And what Rob has brought to the table about the history of the Plank House, something that we weren't even aware of back 10 years ago, has just been totally amazing to us. One of the things that I think is really should be clear is when Jane Weber cut the window out and put the big French door in the parlor, they cut the planks out as well to put that door in. Those planks will not be able to be replaced. Those will have to be a full wall. And when we, to move that window, in my mind, we need that thicker window from the bedroom to go in that wall where the double doors are. I'm not sure that's clear to everybody, but it's got to be, that's a good reason to put that window in there. And what Rob's doing in that one room, we're getting the history of so many different eras of construction. I'm just so amazed at the time and effort he's putting to finding these interesting details about the family, the house, the way it was built, the way it was rebuilt and rebuilt. I think it is worth the effort to listen to what he's up to. And I'm so proud of what he's been doing, and I hope you are too. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Is there anyone
Susan,
else?
I think the public comment in the room has commenced. Ceased? Yeah, well, it has commenced too.
We have two people online, so I'll read the instructions again really quick. If you are using a computer, tablet, or smartphone, if you would like to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand. There are instructions on how to do this on the screen. Typically, the hand icon is located towards the bottom of your screen. For anyone on the telephone, please dial *3 on your phone's number panel to raise your hand. I do not see any raised hands.
Thank you, Susan. All right. Staff may now respond to testimony from the applicant and the public.
I don't have any further comment unless there are questions.
Well, hearing that, the public hearing is now closed and the commission will deliberate. The commission must make findings that either agree or disagree with staff's finding on each criterion to make specific comments on each finding.
So I just want to clarify a couple things. One, if that 19 window stays in the upstairs bedroom and Rob takes the other layer of wood off so it looks like the original walls or exposes the original walls, that window will now be too thick for the wall that it's sitting in. Did I get that correct, Madison?
I think so.
Okay. So part of the removing it is because it'll be too thick for the wall as he's going to expose it as it originally was. And then that window is original to the house, but wasn't original to that room.
Correct.
It would have been downstairs. Okay. Got it.
Thanks, Jan.
I would just like to commend you for the passion and the research and the investigation, not only of the local vernacular of plank houses, but the forensic investigation within the building itself. That's not always the easiest thing to do. So I appreciate that. I do believe that this follows the Secretary of Interior standards. The period of significance is that 1867 to 1900. You're bringing it back to that era, and that is what is supported in the Secretary of Interior standards. I think it gets a little wishy-washy when we get into the 1909 parlor and what was original there and what wasn't, but that's not what we're reviewing today, right? So I would support this.
And just so that it's on the record and we're clear, because now we've talked to the applicant, we've heard from the public comment and everything, it appears that because the applicant wants to, part of this proposal, open the wall, in order to open the wall and not have it be weird, for lack of a better word, we're going to take out this window because now it's going to be thick, and we're going to remove these boards, and we're going to move the window to the other room. So it's not that there's a problem with the window, it's a problem because one of the things that he's asking to do is going to open up the wall. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just clarifying. Not saying it's a bad thing either. I'm just saying clarifying. So if for some reason, one of the commissioners felt that not opening the wall was not a good idea, for instance, then they would kind of be moot. But I feel that it was presented really well eventually so that we can understand the scope of how kind of 2 and 3, I think it's 3, not 1, I can't remember, it might be 1. 1 and 2 are tied together. So 1 and 2 could never be separated in a certificate of appropriateness because of how this project is being presented. Does that seem right?
That seems, yeah. And they coexist, right? You can't have one without the other on that. This kudos, once again, this is a labor of love, like going to all those different places, visiting the English camp and the American camp is awesome. And, you know, as someone that has worked closely with the fort and, you know, taken a lot of students there, like to have another building that we could possibly educate our next generations about and teach this next tradespeople and stuff. And like, that is so awesome to me because I'll say it, I take middle schoolers to the fort, 180 of them at a time, and you might think they're just, but they enjoy it, right? They really do like seeing all of those different things and seeing things rebuilt. And so by giving them this kind of, even our new buildings, our new schools are built with some of the walls and stuff missing so the kids can see the construction of all of that. And so this really entices me to, get the curiosity going of this next generation. And maybe then we might not, lose more of these types of houses and things like that. So I think I'm very excited about it.
Thanks, John. Elaine, do you want to say anything?
I've been really, oh my goodness, it fell over. There we go. A while ago, I went and took a tour of the house. I got to see each different room broken down in both how it exists now, as well as an imagining of where it's going to be in the future. I do understand why we've broken it down to each separate project, because there is so much that needs to go into preserving and restoring this house so that we can see all of the beautiful elements. I can see both the vision of where it's going to be, and I'm also can see the steps that it's going to take to get it there. I am curious about a domino effect is my only hesitation, is if one thing goes wrong with one step, how it would affect the other ones. And I know that we are taking these in each step. 1 and 2 are connected, 3 is separate. But if we open up the wall and find that there is something wrong with this window, or something happens to this window when opening it up, that's my only concern. But I think proposal number 1 needs to happen because we have to see those vertical walls. And so it's not like we can sit here and go, oh, but wait, because proposal 1 absolutely needs to happen. That's where I'm at right now.
Thanks, Elaine. Rob, do you have anything to discuss?
I'm a normal community member. I don't have the
You are
architecture.
you're a commissioner.
On the commission, but I do really appreciate you coming and speaking to us. I've learned a ton, and I'm looking and very excited to actually go visit. And because clearly these things are very rare. So that's all I had to say.
Thanks, Rob. Jan?
No, all been answered.
Okay, thank you.
Can I?
Yeah, Doug, please.
So I just wanted to say I was really impressed with the research, especially the architectural forensic research that you did, echoing Madison. I like the plan. I think of my former boss, Hank Florence, who is a historical architect for the Park Service, and I think he would have really loved this plan for this house. I've been to the house before. Kelly and the board took Tracy and I out there many years ago. I don't think we knew that it was plank wall framing. So that is very unique, particularly in this region. I agree that under the standards of rehabilitation, and given the period of significance, that the moving the window is okay. It's not a restoration, although parts of what you're doing are like a restoration because you're wanting to bring it back to a period of significance, but it's really, I would call it rehabilitation. Yeah. Adaptive reuse, I guess. I think it's appropriate to do the change.
Thank you, Doug. All right, now the commission must make findings that either agree with the staff's finding on each criterion. Do we have a slide with that to make the motion? Well, if we need to make findings that either agree with staff's finding on each criterion, which criterions are we?
You could open up the staff report. That begins on page 5.
Thank you. Just so we make a clear motion.
While we're pulling that up in regards to the motion, as we have now discussed that 1 and 2 are connected, are we going to do motions for each project, or are we going to do a motion for them all together?
I'm fine with doing them all together. It was Jan's idea, but now that we kind of understand more that 1 and 2 are a little more connected, what do you think, Jan?
I'm fine with doing them all together. And I don't know that our motion needs to go over every single one of Anthony's findings.
I just need to know what the findings are.
We essentially agree with yeah, okay. But Anthony's determination that this is appropriate.
Thanks, Jan. All right, now that the commission has deliberate, I can accept a motion to accept the motion for certificate of appropriate for the Stanger House. Go for it.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the certificate of appropriateness based off of the findings by the staff.
I second this motion.
All right, this is a roll call vote, so it's different than when we all just say aye or nay. So I will call your names. Jan Bader. She might have frozen up. I'll come back to Jan. I'm going to go backwards. John Zingali.
Aye.
Doug Wilson.
Aye.
Rob Thomas.
Aye.
Elaine Thatcher.
Aye.
Madison Gabig.
Gabig.
Aye. Morgan Fraser. Aye. Jan Bader, are you back with us? She is frozen.
Her microphone.
Aye.
Oh,
there we are.
There it is.
Thanks, Jan.
Sorry. Aye.
No, it's okay. You're on a boat.
Yes, aye. Aye. It turned on. That was an end.
So that's unanimous. 7-0.
All right. The motion for certificate of appropriateness for the Stanger House passes unanimously. Thank you so much for your time and explaining everything to us, not only this time, but every single time you come. We really appreciate it, and we do appreciate your passion. We know.
And Chair, before we move off this topic completely, I noted that we didn't know that there would be a scale model. So I was going to work with city staff to take a few pictures of it and post it online for the folks that couldn't see it. I know Jan was struggling with the visual aid. So
I'm sure that Rob will let you do that.
Yeah.
All right. With that conclusion, we are moving on to new business. First, in new business, we have a presentation about the proposed Ridgefield South Connector project.
Give us a minute to reset here.
You can ask staff behind you.
Yeah.
I don't know about the technical, things. Yeah.
Sit, yeah. Please sit wherever you're comfortable.
There could be a magnet under there. We don't know. Come on.
And I'll apologize to anyone online. I don't have control of the room's cameras right now, so I can't zoom in on you all like when it's on, CVTV. So, but your audio is being heard.
All right. Good evening. I'm Miranda Lang. I'm the Infrastructure Deputy Director of Public Works at the City of Ridgefield. With me tonight, I have Anthony and Eric, both with Kittleson, and then I have Adrian, who's with JLA. They're all part of our project team that's working on the I-5 Corridor Connector project. They are going to do the majority of the presentation, so thank you.
Yeah, just,
I'll continue to look back and say next.
well, don't hurt your neck.
Okay.
Just say next slide and,
Perfect.
Here.
it'll work.
Thank you so much.
Because I can see up there.
Great. Good evening, Commission. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to present on this project. My name is Anthony Yee, and I am with Kittleson and Associates. The city had selected Kittleson to kind of lead this project, and Eric and I and Adrian are here to provide a project overview. We are not doing this alone, so there's representatives from Kittleson, the firm that Eric and I are with, as well as Adrian from Gene Lawson, but also wanted to just provide an opportunity to introduce our other project team members that are not here. And the reason why I'm going to do that as well is that, as most of you may know, this is what we're calling stage 2 of the South Connector project. The community of Ridgefield, as well as a lot of partners, has spent a lot of good time and energy a number of years ago doing the stage 1 study. And so our project team is actually made up of a lot of those individuals from WSP, Consor, as well as APEC. So just wanted to recognize them as well. Next slide, please. Wanted to provide a short presentation today, but the agenda in front of you, we wanted to provide a brief project history and overview just to kind of get everyone up to speed. And then really, I'm going to turn it over once we kind of go over the overview and provide it over to Eric to talk more about a discussion of the historic evaluation criteria that we would love to get the feedback from this commission on. And then for the bulk of the time, we'd really like to make it more of we call it a listening session, but really a discussion period. We'd love to hear from you. I think if you've seen the presentation, we had some questions at the end that we'd love to be able to explore if there's time permitting. Next slide, please. So project overview. Next slide. We'll just kind of jump to the purpose side of things. So the intent of the project hasn't changed some from when the city and the original project team worked on this project a number of years ago. Really, there's kind of 3 overarching key project purposes of this. Number 1 is to improve traffic operations at the key infrastructure points that service not only the city, but basically the region as well, whether that's at the Pioneer Street interchange, the SR 502 interchange, and the 179th interchange. Really looking to provide that safe and efficient travel routes for all users. And that's really trying to improve regional connectivity to Interstate 5, improving the interchange operations, as well as multimodal safety, and really looking to try to avoid or minimize impacts to sensitive resources, as well as trying to preserve neighborhood livability. We'll go into a bit more about what the current project is focusing in on, and then also sort of what we plan on focusing in on for the next about 1.5 years or so. Next slide, please. This graphic is intended to provide the project timeline, and I apologize, the text is very, very small, so I'll kind of talk through each one of the timelines. But we wanted to start back in 2007 when the South Connector, this project, was added to the county and city comprehensive plans. And I think that's really important to highlight, is that this community at large has seen this project as a priority. And I think there's been a lot of contributions to a lot of the project partners, both from the city, the county, and the regional side of things from RTC, of really working together to try to continue that momentum of creating this project to fruition for the community. In 2008, a year later, WashDOT completed the SR 502 interchange, and I think that was a big milestone project for the area as well. If we fast forward to 2021, that's really the time period in which the stage 1 study was completed. And at that point, if you all remember, that was during the pandemic as well. So as part of that project, there was traffic data collection, there was some analysis that was completed. There was a little bit of public engagement, but during the pandemic, it was pretty limited, and also some engagement with project partners. And there was a review of archaeological as well as historic resources. And we're going to focus a lot about that portion of it later in the presentation. Well, fast forward to today in 2026,
The project priorities and the purpose are still there, but we're in a new environment. There's been a lot of growth within the city, but within the region as well. And so the city, as well as the partners, felt like this would be a really, really good time to be able to reintroduce this with funding coming through, to actually take the time to do the full complete planning study and actually present or provide more opportunities for project partners like yourself, property owners, as well as other agencies to be able to contribute, something that wasn't quite possible in 2021 when the pandemic was actually happening. We're going to go through a bit more of what we're going to look at in the next slide, but for where we're at right now in 2026, I'll call it, we're sort of not quite at the beginning, but we're pretty early in the process. And this is why we are thankful to be able to kind of sit down with this commission, because we want to hear from this commission as we continue down the pathway and definitely create more opportunities to be able to create engagement with you all. Next slide, please. Same thing, a very small graphic with very small text. So I will go ahead and provide a brief overview of that. But where each one of these colored areas, it represents, I'll call it, major technical tasks and or just milestone tasks that we're working on. What we've been focused in quite a bit is sort of, I'll call it threefold, and we're kind of doing these all in parallel right now, but they're represented by different colors here. There's the traffic analysis, as well as the public involvement or public engagement, and working on some portions of the evaluation of the alternatives, more on the environmental side. So let me start with the traffic analysis. So we've had the opportunity to work with the city and the county and WashDOT to be able to obtain and in some cases collect new traffic data. That's something that we want to do, but more importantly, it's really working with RTC on working with them as they have updated their travel demand model to better reflect the recent Growth Management Act Scenario 2 that all of you may be pretty familiar with. But right now, we're actively working with RTC, having them run some of the transportation modeling runs so that we can use that data to be able to effectively analyze future traffic conditions for some of the scenarios that we're going to share in front of you in a couple of slides coming up. Outside of that, in parallel with that, we've started some early portions of the planning level NEPA and SEPA analysis, really looking at more on the environmental side. And so part of that is looking at sort of reestablishing the purpose and need statement of why are we doing this, and really vetting that through with the various partners and stakeholders. And then our partner WSP, who is taking the lead on the environmental side, they are performing what we call a desktop review of the existing environmental conditions. So that's something that they're moving forward with right now. Public involvement, and I can turn this over to Adrian at some point and if you all have questions, but we're early in the stage. We're looking at using all the available resources, whether it's one-on-one engagement, whether it's sort of using social media or the Ridgefield Roundtable, trying to connect with neighborhood associations and things like that. But those are all the things that we're working on right now. We're early in the stage, but we plan on keeping up with this level of activity for the life of the project, which would likely conclude toward the tail end of 2027, probably in the fall, but potentially maybe a little bit later. And then in the alternatives analysis, we're working on portions of it right now, but a lot of that is really going to start taking shape after we've coordinated a lot of the traffic modeling with RTC. Once we sort of nail that down with them and get consensus with the various partners, Kittleson will be able to kind of start running more with the traffic analysis. So we're a little bit a ways out, but that'll really kickstart that alternatives analysis. Next slide, please. This is a graphic that you all have probably seen on just various fact sheets or maybe even on the web page, but just wanted to highlight that this project is considered that stage 2 because stage 1 did a lot of the heavy lifting to determine how did we get to this point? How do we get to these various alternatives here? So these alignment alternatives have not changed since the stage 1 study was completed in 2021. This project is taking a closer look at these, and ultimately the conclusion of this project is that we'll be working together as a team to select a single alignment alternative, which would be the preliminary alignment alternative, and that's something that we will likely get to maybe toward the middle the middle of next year, and then be able to kind of go through a public engagement process as well as the documentation component of it. Next slide, please. This is where I get to turn it over to my colleague, Eric, and he's going to talk a little bit more about the historic evaluation criteria. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. Thanks, Anthony. So as we kind of look at these alternatives, as Anthony noted, we're trying to go from 7 to 1. It's kind of the effort over the next year and a half. And so as we start to compare alternatives, look at the differences between them, we talk about as a team, and the stage 1 study identified what components are important, what priorities do we have for this corridor, what trade-offs do we want to consider. And so there's a long list of criteria that we're looking at when we evaluate them. Some of them are cost, are, like Anthony noted, environmental impacts. You look at all sorts of kind of engineering and more technical kind of complexities of different alignments. And then one of the other criteria that we're going to look at and consider is kind of the historic impacts, noting both kind of known and potential historic properties in the area. So that's kind of the second portion of our presentation today, is I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of here are the things that we're thinking about related to how these might impact different properties, and then hear from you on, is that aligned with kind of the commission's goals, and does that make sense of how we're incorporating this into our process? Next slide, please. So this builds on the criteria in stage 1, and for the historic kind of criteria and things we're considering, the priority and kind of the top item is just reducing the impacts to those key historical resources. So we'll hit on, or we'll talk about a couple of those later on in the presentation that are present, or that are known to be present in the corridor. But definitely reducing impacts to those already identified historically significant properties is kind of one priority. And then just reducing the total number of impact to historic properties overall, whether it's maybe not one of the kind of identified period resources, but maybe it's just a property that has the potential to be classified as historic. A couple other kind of components of the criteria are looking at avoiding impacts to structures. This one does kind of overlap with the just impact to the public and the property owners, and that coordination. Definitely impact to kind of homes and other structures that are out there can be a lot more, carry a lot more weight than just widening a road in front of somebody's property, and we recognize that. And then the final note, or final kind of piece of the criteria that we've been thinking about is how do we leave, whenever you have a new roadway that's providing a new connection, you're likely to either bisect or in some ways change the tax lots adjacent to it. And so trying to leave fewer remnant parcels is definitely a goal of the project as well. So those are all things that kind of we're thinking at a high level as we develop the criteria related to the historic properties. Next slide, please. This graphic is a little hard to see on the screen with to see the variety of the colors. I think the key here is the stage 1 study did a formal investigation and produced a report that looked at both known and potential period resources in the area. So AINW, who is another consulting firm, they spent the time and investigated properties in the area and identified one, properties that are known historical or have known historical resources. Two, they identified properties that would be eligible just based strictly on the age of the structure. And then they also differentiated between structures that they think would be likely eligible to be on the historic database and structures that have kind of less likelihood of, even if they have some age to them, just have a lower chance of being eligible. So those were all classified as different colored dots on the map. And there's kind of two key resources that I'll talk about later that are kind of, two key resources that the project's gonna pay attention to how we impact. Next slide, please. So this is another figure. It's kind of combining the alternative figure that Anthony reviewed earlier with that historic resource figure. These are all the either identified or identified as likely eligible historic resources. One note that I'll add to this figure is the northern portion of the purple alignment, or actually the whole purple alignment, was not part of the stage 1 study. And so the historic resources were not, or all those properties were not investigated to the north. So there is some, there are some additional properties there with that alignment that would need to be investigated if that's ends up being the selected alignment. Yeah, and now I'll talk about two specific resources. Next slide, please. So one of the historic properties on or within the project limits is the Bottle Miller's Barn. It was built in 1826, and it's on the Washington Heritage Barn Register, and that is located on the eastern kind of portion right next to the interchange. So as you'll see with all the alternatives, it's pretty close to the kind of connection point of where the new connection to the interchange will be. And so there's not a lot of difference between the alternatives necessarily in how it will impact, but you can kind of see where the structure is located on that property. And it's a pretty large property. So I think that's something we'll look at, is where the different alignments go within the property and how that might impact the historic resource. And then next slide, please. There's one more historic property that's identified within the project limits. This is on kind of the very southernmost limits of the alignments we're looking at. So in general, all the alignments are north of this historic resource. And this is a historic prune dryer built in 1898. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. And so it's another one that we've identified as, when I talked about criteria, I talked about kind of trying to reduce impacts to key resources. And this is one of those. I think this will be easier to avoid than the barn, just because of the nature of the alignments. And it's pretty far south, as you can see in the picture, but we still wanted to recognize it because it is in the project area. Next slide, please. So as Anthony mentioned, the kind of last portion is, looking at alignments and questions and any kind of recommendations or anything that you think would be helpful as we go about this process of selecting a preferred alternative. We definitely want to hear from you and hear about things we should be considering. And next slide, please. We do have some kind of prompts of things we were thinking about, some questions we had, but we're also open to anything that you think is worth discussing today while we're here.
That's great. What a great project. I was actually on the G Creek interchange. I did the whole survey. I did the data recovery, I did the monitoring, and I'm very familiar with the area. So I've always known that Ridgefield's going to want a connector. You know, we knew that then, that they're going to want a connector, and especially with the amount of growth that's gone on now. I think that I'm looking at your questions, which is why I'm staring up the sky. One thing I noticed on the map of the historic structures, that they were all aligned on 11th Street. And, you know, with that many potential buildings on 11th Street alone, even with the ones that are maybe not eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, that almost constitutes a district, a historic district. So it might be something you think about incorporating, especially when it comes to like mitigation, right? You know, you can create a historic district. That is one thing that popped out at me right away. The thing I didn't see on the map and didn't see addressed, and you're in front of the Clark County Historic Preservation Commission, is are there any properties that are listed on the Clark County Historic Preservation? We have our own list. And so if there was, then you would, like the Stanger house, you would have to come in front of us for a certificate of appropriateness. So it might be nice to know that before you get knee deep. Then let's see, I did take a few notes. I noted on your map, the offsite intersection improvement area is in a National Register of Historic Places archaeological site. And that's a very significant site. That site probably continues north, southeast, west of the highway. At the time we did the interchange project, it was private property, and this wasn't part of it, right? So there wasn't any testing or any real investigation, because once you start, you go down to the highway, but once you go up onto the, where that ramp hits, that's that same landform. So I would be very curious and cautious, about that site. And you're working with the right people. Information about that site is not readily available. You would have to contact the WashDOT who contracted it. And you're already working with AINW, and they're the ones that did the whole project. So you have the right people in your team to find out more about that site. And I like the idea of like the remnant parcels, because that was definitely a question, because you're going through really large, some of those alignments go through really large like farm properties. And as we know, Ridgefield is growing like a weed. Why we need the project. But we do need to preserve some of these open spaces. We need to preserve some of this farmland. And that goes back to that historic district, And my last comment, when you were talking about communities, there are some smaller communities that might be affected, like the community of Sarah, that doesn't have representation. And so I would really make sure that you're reaching out to some of those far-flung areas, even Florida, because they're kind of in that traffic pattern. I drive it, so I'm aware of it. And I'm really happy to see Ridgefield taking such a proactive stance on transportation, because I live in rural Clark County, and it's a nightmare. It is a complete nightmare. And so I'm really happy to see that you're working with the county to kind of at least relieve some pressure maybe on that side of the highway. That was Morgan Fraser's comment. Next. For any questions and discussions.
One question that I had is, I think earlier on this, you said that you were looking at items that were already on the register, as well as buildings that could potentially be added to registers. What qualifications are you putting down for buildings that are potentially to be added to the registers?
I think the main thing that they were looking at was age.
And what age would that be?
At least 50 years old.
That's the question I had. Because
What was that?
they have older than 50 years old. It's a lot younger than a lot of people think of when they're looking at historic buildings. And, 50 years ago feels very recent, especially when you're in different districts like Vancouver and Ridgefield that have existed here for ages. So if you actually look at the numbers, you might have a lot more properties on that list than you're expecting to have or that you currently have right now.
Yeah, I believe AINW did the stage 1 report, and so I'm fairly certain they would have followed kind of best practices for that, but I don't know off the top of my head, so I can't say for sure.
Just out of complete curiosity, since you brought it up, did they do historic property inventory forms or did they just do an informal survey?
It was informal.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, they did lay out kind of next. There was a lot of this will be done in the next phase, but it was more informal. And they did include archaeological, they had a risk map with the eastern offsite was bright red.
Yeah. Because it's known.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it was finding the right balance of kind of investigation for them to help us.
The right level. It's the right level of investigation at that time. I was just curious if they had actually done the forms, because then people can go and read the forms to kind of see what they did, what they didn't do or what they saw, why they thought it was maybe eligible or why they thought it was maybe not eligible. That was all.
Yeah, I believe.
But I'm sure it's part of the process. When you pick an alternative, there'll be a study. There'll be forms.
So I would recommend a number of things. One, in terms of your kind of hierarchy of, significance. Obviously, if it's already listed on the National Register, and what level is listed, is it national, is it state, is it local? Obviously, a prune barn in Clark County is highly significant because of the history of, prunes in the late 18th and early 19th century. So obviously that's a really important barn there that's already listed. I would also include, obviously, if there's any thing listed on the Clark County Register, because you do have to do the certificate of appropriateness. And perhaps really important is to include something that has to do with tribal significance, and make sure that you've actually asked the tribes, because as good as AINW is, they are not tribal. And and probably the government entity needs to reach out to the tribes, Cowlitz, Yakima, probably Grand Ronde, Chinook. So, and then that should be
and these days the Warm Springs.
But yeah, Warm Springs. I include the Warm Springs too, I'm sure.
Yeah, we actually, I believe, have a list of 7 different tribes up in the Ridgefield area that we work with. So
nice.
Yeah. I'm an architect, so this is above my area of expertise, but I'm just looking at the orange and yellow alternatives, and those appear to provide the most distance from the red dots. So I think just providing as much distance as possible would probably be the goal, especially for these rural agricultural buildings.
John, do you have anything to add to this discussion? Give them some feedback.
Just noted what Madison just said. I mean, and to what your point is too, that the vertical there on, what is that, 11th? That's the one that's kind of a little wishy-washy, but obviously, like, we know we need paths both east, west, and north, south. So, I'm curious to see. That looks like the only main artery that's running north, south. And so I'm curious to know, like, is there another option for a north, south thoroughfare other than going all the way out to 31st, which, I drive all the time when I'm heading up there. So, cause it's either like 31st right now, or, I guess you can take 11th, or I'm taking, I-5. So, just with the closeness of that, and there could be a historic district there too, as you were saying, as part of like mitigation, but that would be my thought process on that is there a possible other northern route somewhere in there?
I would just echo Commissioner Frazier's comments around the remnant parcels and trying to maintain large open spaces.
Jan online.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because it was saying I'm having network connection issues. I think between the other commissioners that have already spoken, you've covered anything that I would have brought up.
Thanks, Jan. So, do you have any other questions for us or anything that we said that you'd like us to expand on during the discussion?
Personally, you guys have given us a lot to think about. And I think we're grateful just to be able to kind of dialogue with you. We'd love to be able to kind of continue to kind of gain from your guys' experience and knowledge. We'll continue to use the city as sort of our conduit for outreach, but also we'd encourage this group to also feel free to reach out to us if things do come up. I think obviously you have all of Miranda's contact information and she can pass along all of ours. But yeah, no, this has been extremely helpful.
I'll just say I greatly appreciate the proactivity of all of this too. Because if otherwise we're trying to put Band-Aids on things that are scars and can't be repaired. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for your presentation. It was really great. And thanks for including us in the discussion. These are the kind of discussions we actually want to have more of. So we really appreciate you coming and putting together this presentation.
Awesome. Thank you. I am going to throw a quick plug in there that the project progress is updated on the Ridgefield Roundtable. If you're not familiar, you just go to ridgefieldwa.gov, I think is what the website is. And then just find Ridgefield Roundtable and it has all our project updates. So
great. Now I know where to look.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. We got some public back there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. Next, county staff, will discuss the recent appointment of Doug Wilson to the commission.
Yeah, so we literally had an agenda made before we got, this is Bart for the transcription AI that I should have reminded you all to say your names more because our AI transcription program can actually identify people pretty well if you say your name. So I'm very pleased that Doug's appointment came through before this meeting so he could officially sit in. I had an agenda item originally on here just to give you a status update because I didn't think the county council would get it done, but they did. So now we are fully staffed out with 7 members, and that's great. And all 7 are participating tonight, which is great. And the only thing I would add for all of you to keep in mind is that virtual tear dripping down, we are losing Jan and Morgan next year as they term out after 2 full terms each. And that will leave a big hole. And so you all are in the community talking to lots of folks. We have a few people who have applied repeatedly, so we will make sure that they are on the email lists for notice when the new memberships come up. But any networking that you all do is important when we come up on that in a few months. So that was my plug for recruitment. And I know, did that answer your question, John, that you had, or was that something else you wanted? Something separate. Okay. we can talk offline then. Yep, that's fine. So that.
There you
got-
go.
Got it. Okay. Never mind.
Well, we want to formally welcome you, Doug. We're excited that you're here. We're excited we're finally a full commission. We are so happy that the county moves so fast. So, welcome. All right, that will just roll us right into the next new business. We should now arrange for chair and vice chair elections at the next meeting. If you don't know, I am the interim chair because I was volunteered to do this, and I don't mind it. But please note that any interested parties, that'd be the 7 of us, should submit their interest in writing to the staff in advance via email. I mean, I guess you could probably write them a letter and stick it in the snail mail, but I think Bart would prefer an email.
It doesn't need to be fancy. Just if you can let us know, at least if you're interested in either of the positions or both, first choice, second choice, then we can set up a script for the next meeting where we can vote in an organized way. So no pressure. Just think about it. Let us know 2 weeks out if you can.
All right. Well, that concludes new business. Now we are going to move on to old business. Susan, budget update.
Yes. So a couple things. Not sure if you saw it, but the budget was posted and there's about $5,600 available in the budget for this year, and it does have to be spent before the end of the year, as I know you're very well aware of. And we talked about having a training with the state, and they're happy to come and do that, but that is free. So that
didn't help our budget issue, but yay for that. I know. State's so responsive.
So, we also were able to meet with the attorneys finally. We had some change in staffing, and so it took a little bit of time, but also I didn't set up a meeting right away. They were very helpful and let us know, and I'll ask Rob and Elaine, commissioners, Rob and Elaine, if they also want to comment. But basically, the outcome, I think, of the meeting was that we discussed a few, excuse me, educational type outreach efforts that we would like to move forward with, and they thought that they corresponded with the agreement with the ILA with the city, and they didn't have any concerns. And if at some time they didn't have any concerns with spending that the funds in that way, and if at any time we had questions about a specific type of purchase or program that we wanted to move forward with, that they would be happy to look at an email and give us feedback. So one of the concerns that had come up was if we needed to do any kind of competitive bid or competition for asks like the Clark County Historical Museum for the speaker series. They have over the years asked many times for funding for that program, and we didn't know if any sort of competition was required. And it turns out that because it's under a certain threshold, it doesn't have to be a competitive process. But we had lost that information in the intervening years since that had been established, and so it was good to touch base with them and kind of get their feedback. So
Did they give you a threshold?
a lot more than the total budget. Woo! Yes.
Clear.
I think, and I'm kind of rambling, so did either of you want to make any comments?
I'll jump in. So one of the things that we wanted to talk to them about is over the past, as long as I've been here, we come down to October, November, and we realize that we have a surplus. without needing bid participations, we can fund different educational community events that we seem important. Two of the ones that were discussed in the meeting were if we wanted to give additional funds to the speaker series, we could do that. If, say, we knew that VDA, Vancouver Downtown Association, was looking to create historical markers for buildings or historical interpretive panels that would be available to the public, we could do that and we wouldn't have to run it through any process. It couldn't be a blank check thing though. It couldn't be, hey, we think that in the next 5 years, you should use these funds to create these placards. It would be a, we know you're funding this, here's the money to make it happen, sort of a situation. If we have any questions about exact details, we can always go and ask our lawyers.
Like if the historic trust had something that they wanted to put up, like a plaque, or like if say they're working on a project and they wanted to like do some more informational pieces about it, something like that would also fall under that.
Yeah, because it's us providing historical education to the public as part of the Historic Preservation Commission.
I did find out the signage at Vancouver Lake is incorrect. So it says it's a man-made lake and it is not. So that
Sidebar.
Yeah.
Sidebar. Well, you know, you're talking to the right person. So that makes me think, that specific comment makes me think about placards in particular and information. And I know that, you know, we have several buildings that are on our register that don't have placards. And I know that when the museum came to talk to us about that, they said that that was really like an extra cost that they couldn't do. Like they could volunteer all this time to help people put their buildings on the register, but they couldn't foot the extra then $800. Who knows what it is now? But yeah, that's what it is for a placard. Yep. That's going to withstand, right? You know, that's going to be there. So that's a great thing that we could maybe do is look through our register for public buildings. Of course, we don't want people walking up to private homes. That'd be bad. And see what holes are missing.
To that end, my students last year, the ones that placed second at nationals, they did their performance on the women working at the Kaiser shipyards. The placards there are all like destroyed. Because we like went down there to go look at them. They're graffiti, like.
Who manages that?
Great question. Don't know. But something I'm making notes right now.
Vancouver.
City. I don't know, but I know when we climbed up the stairs to like go get the view of the concrete that's still there and everything, you can't really read that stuff. So I just off the top of my head, I know that those are at least two things that are maybe possible.
And that would be a really good way to spread education, you know, throughout the county. You know, if we really think about different spots, you know.
Well, the fact that those remnants still remain too is pretty incredible, because that's, you know, a story that most people don't know about Vancouver.
Right.
As we were producing the Liberty ships here during the war.
I think that would be, and I'm not cutting you off, Elaine, but I think that we would definitely have to know who manages it. They would have to kind of come to the forefront, right? We're not just throwing money out, right? So I'm just a little afraid if it is the city.
Yeah, I think it is the city
Well, and
that is
Doug,
responsible.
but the city is in partnership with the National Park Service on the historic reserve, and that piece of Marine Park there is part of the historic reserve. So this could be a partnership between the city and the Park Service too, because John is right, those panels are in terrible shape.
So yeah, one of the things, as it's not October, November while we're finding this out, and we have time to, and over $5,000 to figure out, is there anyone who might want to be able to make the connections with the individuals who might be able to make these signs. And
What do you mean individuals that make this? You mean the organization or the?
that is
owner?
the correct word, yes.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, my tongue was going before my brain could formulate the things. To be able to see if that is a project they could undertake.
Yeah, the lake one, it's county park. But there's also new leadership at the Friends of Vancouver Lake, the nonprofit that has adopted that as their site and everything. So I can definitely reach out to them and see for sure.
Yeah, if you could do that and bring the information before next meeting so that if they say yes, we can get moving on that.
Got a note.
Thank you.
And I can reach out to Brad at the museum to see if there's any backlog.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I'd be curious about the marine park thing too. 'Cause
Yeah,
like
I
said,
can
they're-
look up and see what the cost is for those panels
Yeah.
now.
Even just, yeah, like, because I think they're of high educational value. They need to be replaced.
Doug and I can talk about the Marine Park stuff and
Yep.
figure out if there's a way forward.
I also think it would be worthwhile doing some sort of educational or outreach to communities in how better to record and understand the historic, buildings around them or that they own. Because we have a lot of historic neighborhoods, but I think we have one on the state register and maybe we'll have one in the future on the National Register, plus the Historic Reserve. And I think it would be worthwhile to do something that would explain, one, what are the tax advantages and what are the resources available in order to document and record and determine whether your neighborhood is, significant as a historic resource. And I think there's a great deal of interest in that now because of the change in zoning. And so it'll be very important, I think, for neighborhoods to, understand what is the historic character of their neighborhood and how prospective projects can do infill that's sympathetic to that neighborhood. So just throwing that out there. But I think that would be a useful expenditure of some funds.
How do we take action on that? How do we take action on that?
On that one particular historic neighborhood, the city of Vancouver, somewhere buried in Jason's files, is they did a bunch of the legwork for Fruit Valley to make it a historic neighborhood. So they did the legwork, but it got stalled when enough of the neighbors were concerned about someone telling them what they couldn't do with their property. But that could maybe be resurrected if we could find the survey work that was done for that neighborhood. Jason will tell you this is a capacity issue to do a neighborhood, and not everybody has a Doug Wilson that wants to take a lead on something like this.
Yeah, right.
Jane's
I think
absolutely
one thing that
correct.
Doug said was about education.
Right.
And that's one thing that I brought up was having some sort of educational session. And that's when we talked about bringing down somebody from the state to kind of talk to property owners about the benefits of listing your property, whether it's on the Clark County Register, the Historic Register, wherever you're listing it. I think that's something that we originally were talking about, because I do see that need too. I see a lot of people who are just a little confused, and they think it's always going to be a hindrance when, in fact, it's fine. It's just a process. We all go through processes all the time, whether it's our SEPA or whatever.
Do we have like educational materials, like pamphlets and stuff that are part of our outreach, like tent and stuff specifically on this?
Looking right at Bart.
Well, and I'm looking back at Susan because I think they did a lot of work on new flyers and things, but I don't know if we don't have like a box of trifolds ready to go.
okay.
But we have lots of information on all the different subjects, and the web team created new web pages that we can point people to. I think we're kind of to the point of QR codes and pointing people to information at this point, but we have all the information. One thing that going back to the placard discussion, because you talked about capacity, and that would be a great thing for the money to go towards if you all decide to do that. But we need somebody to say they're the lead on that and funneling information back to us, because I don't know that either Susan or I really has the capacity to start a new placard project between now and the end of the year. But
Yeah, my idea was to, like, my personal idea was to reach out to Brad, right? And do some partnering with Brad also about the education aspect, because he's got the space and he's got the mailing lists, right, of concerned people in the community. And maybe do some partnership and do something in the fall for that. And then with the placard, it wouldn't be the same thing, right? It would be partnering maybe with the Historic Trust or with Brad or with somebody else to help part of that leadership with whatever commissioner gets assigned to that.
So taking that to an action item for staff that we could actually help push it over the finish line. Can we set aside, I don't know, half an hour at the next meeting if we can get Brad to come, or someone, or whoever from his
right, or from the city, or whatever these
with a
programs are.
prioritized list of maybe the damaged signs or
Katie.
the things that there's already research done, and it would just be producing a new, because time will be of the essence between now and the end of the year.
The thing with placards is that you can spend the money quicker than you get the placards.
Yeah, but I think if we order them,
Yeah,
I don't know. I guess that's a question.
We have to receipt the goods before.
Receive the goods.
Okay, I'll write that.
So we would need a vendor that could produce the product before
By
the end of the year.
Thank you for
You
that,
know,
Susan.
the thing is, the
Write that note
Historic
down.
Museum already has a program that is that they need to do the work and produce the. We have funding, they have the expertise and a program that's already in place. So I like the idea that Morgan had of having Brad come and explain what they could and couldn't do.
Yeah.
And Susan, correct me if I'm wrong, and we can call the lawyers back. I believe, to my understanding, it was that we had to get the money to the organization and have a receipt by the end of the year. The deliverable did not need to be on our desk before December 31st.
So I don't think we addressed that specific fact in the meeting we just had, but in having to spend down our budget in the last few years, the library books, the promotional materials, all that had to be receipted. It had to be in our hands before December 31st. So
Okay.
I have a feeling it's still the same.
Makes sense.
Susan, can you double check that? Because I was always told with the city that we had to have paid the bill, but it didn't have to have arrived yet.
You bet. I will absolutely double check.
I'm just thinking of the grants that we've paid out, right? Like it has to be in process, but sometimes it goes a little longer into like the next
Yeah.
right
here. So I'm just curious if it's the same.
Well,
And that's what I was trying to understand from the meeting we had with legal, because they got a little waffly on it, but they were saying like it couldn't be like, we give you the funds and, in the next 3 to 5 years, this gets turned around. But if it was set aside and like the project was already in process,
Or completed to the part where we've given them the information, we've given them the money, now that
We know which plaques are being created, but they're not physically finished yet. Was what I understood from it, but Rob,
Yeah,
Susan, correct me
That
if
was
you've
my
got.
understanding too. It
Okay.
just, like you said, I think they use the word blank check.
Yeah, can't be a blank
It can't
check.
be like, oh, this is something.
Yeah, we don't want to, we're not blank
Right.
checking it,
Right.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put a placeholder for Brad or whoever is the appropriate person next meeting.
Well, and Susan's going to ask the question, which is great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susan.
I just before we move on, Jason, were you trying to say something earlier? I heard you maybe talking
over you because we can't see you.
Yeah, no, I don't know if you could hear me or not. I was just piggybacking on what Jan was saying earlier about Fruit Valley, and yes, I can look into that. And I do know they're looking at big picture or like strategic planning, more of a specific plan possibly for that area as well. So I don't know how that plays into all of that. But yeah, I can look into that and potentially report out on it at the next meeting in September.
That's great. Thanks, Jason.
And I think we could also do some pre-planning for next year in terms of maybe reaching out to some of our people and say, would you like a plaque? We don't have money right now because we don't have time to get it to you, but we could probably do it next year.
I think the problem with this year too is that there's conferences that got cut down to one day, and so there was other, because I definitely want to go to a conference and learn, because clearly I need.
They're fantastic investments.
And we're investing in you, Rob, so we want you to go.
But it's a good plan to have because you never know what happens, right?
Right.
So-
And it's like, so right now we have $5,687. We start spending that down, even if we send you to a conference or we send me to a conference or send you to a conference, we'll still end up with $3-4 grand. And so if we're doing a plaque program, you know, that can, like you said, we can use part of it this year. Maybe that can be a contingency plan for next year to finish the rest of the plaques, right? Or the interpretive signs or whatever we come up with in the meantime.
Okay, we've got lots of ideas.
Yep. What you got, Susan?
Quick few follow-up items. So I would also like to ask for approval to spend the $1,715 to renew all of the memberships that are listed on the budget. Those amounts have stayed consistent for several years, and around this time, we usually ask approval for that. Would also,
Any motion?
because we hadn't had the meeting with the attorneys, we held up payment of the $2,000 for the lectures, the speaker series. And so would like to also pay for that invoice. And just remind you, it might be slightly less than 5687 because last meeting you approved a mailing to owners of historic properties for the training, and wanted to note that Michelle Thompson is happy to come down and possibly with some of her colleagues to talk about tax incentives, but she also threw it out there. If there's other topics that you're interested in having a speaker address, let her know what those are, and she would get back to us about that. So
Homework.
see.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we do that in one motion, or do we need?
Motion to approve the
Memberships and the
memberships in the speaker series.
Yeah.
I think that can be one motion. Don't you think, Susan? Yeah.
Well, then I would like to make a motion to pay our memberships and our speaker series.
I second that motion.
So much enthusiasm. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. It's always a fun topic.
So I'm going to have to get off here because the ship is about to take off, and I've been notified I'm losing my network connection.
Well, thank you for
So,
being here today, Jan. I don't think
see
you're
you
gonna miss
all
much.
next month.
Enjoy, Jan.
Yep, we'll see you next month.
See you next month.
All right, now we will move on to announcements and updates. Are there any other announcement or event reminders from the members
Outreach.
that is coming up?
Outreach hasn't met.
Or that's next.
Oh, no, that's sorry.
This is about events, you know, when we go places and do cool things. Sometimes we go to the fort, sometimes we do things.
I will say the America 250 at Fort Vancouver was a lot of fun. They think the Historic Trust did a great job putting that on together. And yeah, it was.
Yeah. I know Andy was a part of
lot
that
of great
too.
activity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll say that the celebration at Pearson Air Museum is going to come up in this month. Don't exactly ask me which day it is, but
Pearson Air Museum.
I'll be giving some walking tours of the spruce mill as part of my volunteer work with the Friends of Fort Vancouver National Historic Site. And if I look at my calendar, I believe it is the Saturday, the 15th of August.
Thank you, Doug. I've been in Alaska, so my brain is totally mush, so I don't have any announcements or event reminders in the next month. So, all right. Since we got through the announcements and events that quickly, just so you know, Doug, this is part of every meeting, so we just try to bring information to the group about different events that are happening in our communities. John will often bring up information about what's going on with his fantastic school groups. And that's what that little section's about. The next one is the subcommittee updates.
Forgot about that. I will say we had students. So,
sorry.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, sure.
We had a student from Clark County, one of mine, and she's also at Columbia River, but she actually had her museum exhibit about Billy Frank Jr. on display in the American History Smithsonian.
It's amazing.
She did great.
I love that.
And then the same team of girls that placed second overall last year, they finished again in the top 10 in the nation, or actually internationally this year. So
very cool.
We have some really amazing historians, and actually Washington State as a whole, it's not just Clark County. We had finalists, I think, in 10 of the 14 categories and several different awards. Like Washington kicked butt this year. So
Great.
Yeah, it was awesome. And it's
great to hear.
Very uplifting to see all these new historians doing this type of work. So
Yeah, I swear this year I'm going to History Day. It's on the calendar. Going. I mean, it's the month. I've just highlighted the month because I don't know when it is. The whole month. Yeah.
This month is History Month.
I know. It's like, all right. The next on our agenda are subcommittee updates and announcements. So we'll hear any updates from subcommittees that have not already been addressed. First one is demolition. I can tell you that Bart and I have not met on demolition at all because he's working through that comp plan, but soon we will. I did hear that outreach hadn't met. Is that correct? You said that?
yeah, it's just Elaine and I right now because Andy.
Yes, Andy is no longer with the commission. Bart and I talked briefly in another related topic about setting up a meeting because without Andy, we need to do a little bit of restructuring and reformatting. And so I think that might be able to be an email, and then we can figure out where we're going to go meeting wise after said email.
Great.
Great.
To hear that. Question for the outreach committee, thinking about the mailers that we just sent out and the potential educational session that we might be putting on. Can we add that to your basket?
Yeah, add it to the basket. It's a very nice basket.
Thank you so much. Because I feel like that falls right in there. So the next subcommittee that we have going on right now is design and the website. And are we still in the same place? Same great place?
Same great time.
Yes, we have all the data together for the update of the maps. And once we get through the comp plan, GIS will take that data and make that.
Will we get to see like a little preview of maybe what that looks like before we go live?
Sure.
Great. You know, I've been waiting on pins and needles for that map.
To that end, we have new commissioners and stuff. So do we need
Recruit them up.
we need new pictures? Well, no, we need new pictures and bios for the website, right?
Oh, yeah, we will
And
do.
we should try to get a full group picture if possible.
Would we like to try to do that next meeting?
I think, yeah, I mean,
I
that
think
works
that's
for
a
me.
great plan.
I can, I mean,
I don't think Jan's going to be on a cruise.
Yeah, I took the last picture. I mean, I could do it again.
Yeah, you do a good job. Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
anyone?
Send in your headshots. Send in your headshots, guys. We need headshots for the website.
Is anyone knowing right now that they're not available on the 2nd?
Should be here. I'll be here.
I should be here unless the whole county goes on, and the whole state continues to go up in flames.
Which day is Labor Day? It's a late Labor Day.
It is. It's the It's the 7th or.
I have my phone away, guys.
Yeah, doesn't mean I did.
I know that's
Labor Day's
I
the
need
7th.
friends.
Labor Day is the 7th. Okay, not the 1st. Okay.
So,
Yeah, so we'd be on the 2nd. We're good.
All right.
and I'm already in the second week of school, so I'm good.
Yeah.
You're already strapped to your desk.
All right. If anyone thinks they're not going to be available,
Well, that would be really good because that's when we're going to do the chair nominations.
Yeah.
it would be great if everybody could be there.
Unless you're deathly ill, don't come. Not good.
Even not deathly ill, just might have germs to share. Please no.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions or discussions about these subcommittees to our two new members in particular?
What do they do?
What do they do? We go out and demo historic buildings all the time. That's what Bart and I do in our spare time. So the demolition committee started out, we worked with the city to come up with a process to do a minimal amount of recordation before they destroy buildings. We're currently working on the county side of that, and they're very receptive. I just need the county to be a little more available because they've been really busy. That does make me think, though, like there are communities within Clark County that have zero ethos for, historic preservation. We can get some help with the county. We worked with the city, but we might even think about expanding a little more and working with some of the smaller communities that fall under our umbrella, like Ridgefield, La Center, Camas. I'm not sure what the other cities are. I'm looking at Bart.
Well, all the actual cities, we have intergovernmental agreements with so that this group represents them. And the city of Vancouver is the only one that does their own.
Right. So it just might be worth thinking about in this next upcoming year, maybe reaching out to some of the other communities, especially communities that are really positive about historic preservation. Like, for instance, Ridgefield is pretty proactive, even though, the development of the town has created a giant loss of historic properties, but they have some really nice historic properties downtown. So that might be something to add to the demolition list. So thank you for that, spurring my memory.
Outreach does outreach.
So our website was from like 1997 when they first started the internet. And people like Jan and Susan and Julie, who was in here, our former commissioner, worked really hard to get that spruced up. And it's looking really good. So they're kind of at the tail end of their, what do you call that, formation? Because when the website's kind of done, we'll be sitting in a really good place. So I think that some subcommittees have just been staying on. We can get new subcommittees, and then others can dissolve when they meet their goals.
That'll just be maintaining for quite a
Right.
while then, yeah.
Right.
An update, a couple of updates here and there, but.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks so good.
Yeah.
So do we have any discussion or questions about these subcommittees? Any further ones, Doug? Okay, you're good? We answered them. All right, with that, we're going to move right on to good of the order. Are there any comments for the good of the order?
Welcome, Doug.
That's what I was going to say.
It's nice seeing so many of you in person too.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, it's really nice to have a full group for the first time in a while. That is really good, really a good thing. Not hearing any other ones, I could take a motion to adjourn it at 8:27.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. With that, we conclude the, what is this, August commission meeting.
Woohoo.